Russia steals an auto plant. Moldova wants to quit CIS. New president of Argentina is on fire. Street protests are breaking out in Serbia. Cuba gets closer to Russia, one step at a time. And the biggest news of the week, Iran SLAPS Russia. Welcome to another World's News update as seen from Russia. Howdy, howdy, friends. My name is Konstantin, and welcome to Inside Russia, where usual Russia is explained by the unusual Russian. Every Wednesday, I give you Russian take on important news. The news, international news that I find important. And let's jump straight to the news. Numero uno, number one. The first news of this past week comes from South Korea. Hyundai Motors, or Hyundai Motors, the manufacturer of very good cars from South Korea, will sell its manufacturing plant in St. Petersburg. Why did it make the list of important news here? What's the big deal? Things happen all the time. Assets are bought, assets are sold, bada bang, bada boom, mergers, acquisitions, takeovers. It's business. And what's the big deal? Well, in Hyundai Motors' case, it's more than just business. It's a lesson. A lesson to the entire world, to all investors in the world. Do not ever, never come to Russia and invest considerable amounts into building non-liquid assets. Because Hyundai Motors sold the plant that cost 219 million American dollars to build a few years, just mere few years ago for, this plant, a big one, real big one, for $110. That's quite a plant, let me tell you. And I kid you not, Hyundai Motors did sell it for this amount of money, $110. I kid you not. Oh, many foreign companies are learning in a very hard way that long-term investments into Russia is a huge risk and potentially big loss. Now, $110. I'd like to buy the plant. I have $110. Sell it to me, please. No, I'm not Vladimir Putin family member. No, I'm not his friend either. No, I'm not a KGB officer. Oh, I can't buy it then? Oh, okay. Well, it's easy to understand that foreign investors are looking at Russia as it were burnt wasteland now. But if you listen to the Russian government, the picture isn't so bad after all, and foreign investors are standing in line waiting to invest into Russia. Well, Russian propaganda for you. And we are moving on to the next news. Be careful not to become a communist. Check this out. How do you like this guy right here? The president of Argentina, the new president of Argentina, the libertarian, bat in hand, wished everyone a Merry Christmas from Argentina. This guy is very controversial for sure. We still don't understand how he will turn out as the Argentinian president. He's got lots of crazy ideas, but quite a few good ideas. But the way he started his presidential term is actually, it's pretty darn interesting, And I like his stand on communism very much. We are alike in that, Hey, buddy, take your tool, take your bat, and come to the big country far away up north. You'll find plenty of work there. The next news is from Serbia. disturbing, I'm not sure, serious news. Many Serbians came to the streets to protest recently. Although not a big expert on Serbia, I am. This is what I know. Check this picture out. The protests are breaking out. Thousands of Serbs have been protesting on the streets of Belgrade in an anti-government protest to demand the annulment of Serbia's general election last week that was deemed unjust by international observers. Alexander Vučić and his party supposedly won the elections, but regular Serbs are feeling like the election was cooked. So they started protesting. What happened next was, well, if you look at these pictures, you will see that there are quite a few people, there are quite a few photographers, journalists, and the protests, well, I don't really see any violence breaking out. And yes, people mean business. They are protesting. What happened next, kind of was not entirely unexpected. The Russian ambassador to Serbia said that Vučić, the prime minister, has irrefutable evidence that protests in the country were organized and supported by the evil West. Well, anywhere you go, you run into the evil West, the Anglo-Saxons, the Satanists. Well, interesting. Don't you find? It was announced not by Vučić himself, that's him, the prime minister, but by the Russian ambassador on behalf of Vučić. Then the Serbian prime minister thanked the Russian special services on TV for warning about impending riots. Not... How do I say that? At this point, it got very interesting to me because I started smelling the sulfur. I started smelling Russia. The Russian special services are, of course, the KGB, none other. Now, when somebody thanks KGB for services provided, I get very suspicious. My dear Serbs, know that the KGB is the special services not aimed to help people. Quite on the opposite, quite on the contrary. You really want to get proof of that? I know that many of you support Russia and are very fond of Russian, but don't make mistake about the KGB. If you want to find out what kind of services they provide, go to live in Russia for a while, like for 6 months, and you will understand everything, okay? Then Vučić himself addressed the nation, speaking against the background of the riots, said that he had already thanked the partner special services of other states, meaning Russia, who warned the Serbian authorities about the evil West behind the disgusting riots that Serbian foreign agents, puppets of the West, organized. The police in Belgrade violently dispersed, that very familiar picture to me, violently dispersed the protesters at night and occupied the square in front of the administration building. One thing though, this news coming from Serbia, it's not really coming from Serbia. It's at least that's not where I got it from. It came from Russian propaganda. I basically quoted what they were saying in Russia about the protests in Serbia. And you know what? I am pretty sure they're lying. So if there are any Serbs out there who witnessed, who know what's going on in their country, if you're watching, please let us know the truth. Please describe what's happening in the comment section. I'd really appreciate it. because I think that's the only way for me to get the truth. I don't believe the Russian propaganda. It's really bad because in Russia, remember this, in Russia, a lot of Russian population does believe Russian propaganda. And they think that Serbia is currently under their attack from the evil West. And the next step, expect the Russian world to come to the rescue of Serbia on top of the tanks. The next news comes from a small but very proud European nation. It's called Moldova. The place is absolutely beautiful. It's a part of former the USSR. Well, it was a part of the USSR. And the country is small. It's strategically located in the center of Europe. And it has announced plans to withdraw from the CIS by the end of 2024. The CIS is the organization that consists of former Soviet republics turned independent states for close cooperation, blah, blah, blah. Ukraine used to be part of the CIS. Now it knows what kind of cooperation is served there. That's another scene from Moldova, absolutely beautiful country. And Moldova intends to withdraw from almost all agreements within the CIS by the end of the 2024. This was stated in an interview with local television by the deputy from the Action and Solidarity Party, the head of the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Policy, Doina German. We're almost at the final stage. We have set a goal to complete everything by the end of 2024. This does not mean there will be no small delays, but for the most part, almost all the assessments of individual ministries show that we are at the final stage. Now we are technically terminating the agreement signed within the framework of the CIS. I just quoted the deputy. She found it difficult to say whether Moldova is going to sign a separate document on withdrawal from the CIS bloc or whether this process will be completed automatically after withdrawing from all the agreements. At this point, it's not sure. Well, all I have to say that Moldova is on the right path, but beware of Russia. It'll not let you leave without a fight. The last time Putin talked about Moldova leaving the CIS and joining Europe was 3 weeks ago. He was visibly upset, saying that what will Moldova do without Russia? It won't go anywhere. So Moldovians, be warned and prepare for a challenge and perhaps a fight. But you're on the right path. The next news is grandly international. The United States of America has begun the urgent negotiations with the G7 countries on the confiscation of frozen reserves of Russia, monetary assets. The administration of U.S. President Joe Biden has begun urgent negotiations with its allies on the use of frozen Russian assets for military support of Ukraine. According to the officials, negotiations between finance ministers, representatives of central banks, diplomats, and attorneys on this topic have intensified in the recent weeks. The White House insists that the G7 countries, Great Britain, France, Germany, Italy, Canada, and Japan, will have developed a strategy for using Russian funds by February 24th, the second anniversary of Russian invasion. That's a symbolic date. So the allies are asked to determine whether the money will be used to restore and support Ukraine's economy or for military purposes, military aid. in 2022, G7 countries, the European Union and Australia, froze the assets of Russia's central bank for 260 billion euro. Most of it, that's around $330 billion, depending on the exchange rate. Most of it, 210 billion euros, was blocked by the United European Union countries. In turn, the United States froze only 5 billion euro. Well, earlier, the head of the US Treasury, Janet Yellen, argued that without congressional action, the seizure of blocked assets is prohibited by law. Some senior US officials have also expressed concerns that countries around the world will no longer keep their funds in the New York Federal Reserves or in dollars if the US sets a precedent for confiscating money. And it's a very good point they made, because the United States has many powers, and one of them is financial. It's the financial center of the world, and American dollar is the reserve currency of the world. So therefore, the reputation of dollar must be intact. However, on December 20th, it became known that Washington proposed to the G7 allies to recognize themselves as victims of Russian aggression against Ukraine and confiscate 280 billion from the central bank of Russian Federation. The document submitted by the United States for discussion, that's funny, for discussion stated that all countries that financed Ukraine during the war could receive such status as victims. After the confiscation of Russia's central bank assets, money, it is proposed to transfer these funds to Kyiv in tranches through the World Bank or the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development. At the same time, the transfers will be counted as the advance payments as part of the compensation for damages from the war, which Russia will have to pay in order to conclude peace. That's everyone thinks that Russia will have to pay, except for Russia. If you say that inside Russia, you can be beaten, because Russians, they don't like the idea that they will have to pay to restore Ukraine. And I'm talking about all Russians, from the lowest level, from regular people on the ground to the government. That's a different story. First, this is how it's seen in Russia. This whole thing, they're trying to confiscate our money. Outrage. They are stealing our money. That's the propaganda screaming, the government is screaming, our money. They're stealing people's money. They can't do that. They're Satanists. Well, the Russian propaganda either deceives the public on purpose or simply uninformed. That also could be the case. Let me quote the Speaker of Russian Parliament's upper chamber, Valentina Matvienko. In 2018, she said publicly, I quote, "It doesn't matter if it's local budget money or, province money or federal budget money. It's all a Tsar's money." And I tend to agree with her. In Russia, all money is Tsar's money. That's the system the Tsar built, the vertical of power. And she simply knows better. She is one of the top people in the vertical of power. She even said it publicly to the Russian people. I quoted, folks, I didn't make it up. It happened in 2018, and when I read it, I literally had to clean my eyes because I didn't believe it. But yes, she said that. Russians bought it as usual. No one said anything. I seem to be the only person who noticed and got upset in Russia. But hey, it looks like it's me against the state. So she clearly said that all money in Russia, no matter who that belongs to, is Tsar's money. Okay? And now the propaganda is saying that money frozen in Europe is people's money. They're stealing people's money, you know? When it's in Russia, it's Tsar's money. But when it's in Europe, freezing, and they want to put it to Ukraine, that's people's money all of a sudden. I don't think so. It's still Tsar's money. It's Putin's money. I, as a Russian taxpayer, have no problem with you freezing Russian assets. I, as one of 140 million of owners of that money, give you permission for my part. Of course, it's my money. Well, perhaps it's not. Even if it's not my money, if it's Tsar's money, I give you permission anyway. And at the end, still on this news, I love it. Now, think about this. You might have missed something very, very serious, very important. Washington proposed to the G7 allies to recognize themselves as victims of Russian aggression against Ukraine and confiscate 280 billion euros from the Central Bank of Russian Federation. So they have frozen, now they want to confiscate. So the America wants to recognize itself as the victim of Russian aggression and pay itself, cover its expenses. But what about Ukraine? Please, when you seize that money and confiscate, make it yours, please don't forget about Ukraine. Ukraine is kind of like the real victim here. Well, it's very American. What can I say? The next news comes from Cuba. It's good news. It's actually good news for a change. The breakthrough for Russian banking system, another one. Russian card payment system MIR is expanding at an alarming speed, growing like wildfire. Don't listen to those pessimists who say that Russian financial system is at the brink of disaster. Those crazy Russian insiders, YouTubers who tell you the news from Russia, economic news, and eggs are going up in price and the shortages and Russian banking is not well. Hey, don't listen to them. No, everything is actually great. Another country covered by MIR payment system. Huh? How about that? Cuba. Look at this beauty. That's how the MIR card looks like, by the way. MIR card issued by Russian banks began to be accepted at POS terminals. That's a place where you can pay at a store for your purchase, and ATMs in Cuba. The launch happened in the resort town of Varadero and in country's capital, Havana. Altogether, 8 POS terminals and ATMs in Cuba will be accepting MIR cards. 8! It's no joke, my friends. It's multiple locations. In Russia, they said multiple locations, and I checked, and it is. They were not lying. It's 8 multiple locations. 8 locations all over Cuba. That's fantastic. Now, about a month ago, it was Laos that started accepting Russia MIR cards. Also multiple. 19 ATMs altogether in Laos accepting MIR cards now. And just 1 month later, 8 more ATMs in Cuba. Huh? That's the results. Good. Breakthrough. Don't laugh. It's in the Russian news. They are proud of it. It's major. I have calculated, with a speed like that, soon enough, MIR cards will be accepted everywhere, in every single country. It will take 1,978 years, 11 months, and 6 days. I mean, that's acceptable. Putin will still be the president of Russia then, so I guess that's okay. And on a serious note, friends, Cuba, no, that's not too bad. Not too shabby, Well, let me tell you something. That's how a Cuban store looks like, and it accepts Mir cards now. Just one problem. There's nothing to buy at Cuban stores. Even if you have Mir card full of Russian rubles, okay, and you're ready to pay, there's nothing to pay for in all the 8 POS terminals. The stores are empty. I know. I have seen that. I've been to Cuba, I've been to Havana, and I've been to Varadero. Plenty of sunshine and music. There's rum, cigars, and that's pretty much it. Empty stores. There's nothing. I also have one suggestion. Mir payment system. You should expand to North Korea next. That's your target market. You'll find yourself there right at home. Whew. By the way, folks, if you're liking today's news update, please help me spread it by, as usual, making reposts of this in your social media accounts. That helps a lot. Thank you so much. The next news is also about the money, and it's a little more serious. It looks like the European Union is preparing an alternative plan for military assistance to Ukraine for 20 billion euro instead of 50 billion plan that Hungary vetoed in mid-December. Good man Orban did that. The new plan will circumvent the Hungarian veto. The idea is that the largest, just let me fill you in. The European Union countries have come up with $50 billion as the aid to Ukraine. But there's one guy, and he said he doesn't want to do that. And that's the president of Hungary, Prime Minister of Hungary. And his name is Viktor Orban, and I'll have another news about him. So he has vetoed this aid package. But now the Europeans are trying to circumvent. And the idea is that the largest European Union countries will allocate state guarantees under which the European Commission will be able to borrow up to 20 billion euros on the market, a financial market. A similar mechanism was used to finance package of assistance to European Union countries during the COVID-19 pandemic. While the Republican and the Democratic parties are fighting each other and blocking the aid in Ukraine, the Europeans in the United States, the Europeans are walking the walk. Thank you. The next news comes from Hungary, from Budapest, from the Prime Minister, that is the Prime Minister constantly from 2010, 14 years in a row, Viktor Orban himself. Orban is pro-Russian. In Russia, he is considered a close friend of Russia, of Vladimir Putin, and he is often called as «Наш человек в Европе», our man in Europe. You can say anything about Orban, whether he's a Russian agent or not Russian agent, I don't really know that. Again, I'm not an expert on Hungary and Hungarian politics. I just know what I see in the news. But what I really understand about Viktor Orban now, that he's smart and he wants good for his country. He recently said that he wants to always have one sovereign country to be located between Hungary and Russia. So, you see, he doesn't want Hungary to be the neighbor of Russia. No matter whatever friends he has in Russia, I guess he knows them better than anyone else. That's why he says and says again, he wants to have someone in the middle between Hungary and Russia. That way he feels comfortable. He knows better. That's actually a smart guy. And the last news comes from a very unexpected place. Now, this is the end of the year, and this news is very strange. In Russia, it's not mentioned anywhere. I really had to dig down deep to find it. Okay, it's not mentioned as if it never happened. It doesn't exist. Why? You will understand in 1 second. The Iranian Foreign Ministry summoned the Russian ambassador and strongly protested to him because of Moscow's actions. Iran? Russia's closest friend and military ally. At least that's what Vladimir Putin says. At least what it is believed in Russia. Closest friend and military ally saying, "Fudge you, Russia," in a diplomatic language? What? What is that? Now, this is what happened. If you look at the world's map, and I will help you a little bit, check this out. This is Iran. And down south, you see the United Arab Emirates. You know? And you'll see that Iran and the United Arab Emirates are very close to each other. They are across the straits, basically, of the Persian Gulf. And if you're in Dubai, you're basically right next to Iran, across the strait. There are 3 disputed islands there. Each country claims them own. And at the 6th session of the Russian-Arab Cooperation Forum in Morocco, a joint statement was adopted confirming support for the efforts to achieve peaceful settlement of the dispute over these 3 islands. And Russia signed. Oh boy. Iran didn't like that. Tehran declared Iran's eternal sovereignty over the islands and stressed that it rejects any claims to Iran as unacceptable. It's the Iranian and its eternal sovereignty, those islands. The Iranians summoned Russian ambassador and stated the need to respect the territorial integrity of the countries as a recognized and basic principle of relations between people. You know, again, when I read that, I read it again. What? What did Iran say? With all my due respect to Russia? Russian ambassador was taught a lesson that Russia has to respect the territorial integrity of the countries as recognized and basic principle of relations between people. What? Ukraine, anyone? Am I the only one again? Whoa. That's quite a face slap. A friend, huh? A close ally, huh? Well, my friends, my predictions is that in 2024, Vladimir Putin will be addressing the nation, Russia, again, saying that, oh, Russia was backstabbed, and this time by Iran. Oh, another country backstabbed us. I don't know what kind of a backstab it'll be, but I'm pretty sure it'll be painful. And that's it for today's World's News Update. I suggest now that you check out another video I made documenting how I was leaving Russia forever. Link is right here. Thank you so very much. You're fantastic, and Carthago delenda est.